If you want to see someone who doesn't know what they're doing not fix a motherboard, that's what this crap is. I did a crash course by watching motherboard repair videos, but there's not that many of them, and half of them aren't in English. Plus they're not in logical steps, but jump all over the place, which is what this video is. If you want to see logical repair, go look at Tech Cemetery. Here goes step 1, step 2, step 3, and if you get a result that's unexpected, do this. I bought this 3rd gen motherboard to replace my blown 3rd gen motherboard. Its i7-3770 is still plenty powerful for what I use it for, so I figured $60 for another motherboard would be cheaper than going to a low-end new, i.e. an i3-10105F RAM motherboard for $360. But that hasn't panned out because I bought 3 3rd gen motherboards and all 3 failed after a few heat cycles. This is an MSI B75MA-P45, but the important number is the MS-7798. The fault. When I got it, I think I remember seeing the LEDs in the LAN working, but after a couple minutes in the BIOS, they stopped working. So I bought a LAN card and just used that. A month and a half later, I pulled the motherboard out to see if I could fix this thing. So I put it on the bench, connected everything up, and plugged the LAN in, but it was still dead. I left it connected with the 3-volt standby power on, went to the shop for 2 hours, but when I came back, the orange LED was lit on the LAN. I wanted to see if I could get the green 1GB LED running, but when I grabbed the metal connector tower, it was hot. I then touched parts on the motherboard to see where it was coming from, and around the LAN chip it was very hot. So obviously there was a short around here somewhere. The quick way to see if a simple passive is shorted to ground is to put your multimeter on resistance and put the beeper on. Then connect the black lead to some metal on the board that's connected to the ground plane, get a super sharp probe, then check both sides of the component. And it's okay to have a beep on one side, but not on both sides. Basically one side could be connected to ground, so it's going to have a beep short, but the other side should be a circuit isolated by the part, so it shouldn't be shorted to ground. Basically you don't want this to happen. On a side note, check when your continuity buzzer goes off on your multimeter. Mine will buzz at 26.5 ohm, but won't buzz at 27.5 ohm. And that means the buzzer could be telling you it's shorted when it's not actually shorted. I checked all these small parts around here and there was a lot of shorts on both sides. I looked at the datasheet, but you can't tell what's interconnected, so you can't tell if it's one part shorting all these things out. In the end I sprayed the area with IPA, connected the standby power, and it was the LAN chip that dried out first. And after I removed the chip, all the shorts were gone. Unfortunately, when I was testing the LAN chip for power, I noticed it didn't get as hot as before, but I noticed the chipset had now got very hot. And when I started checking parts around here, I noticed this capacitor was shorted on both sides, and realised there's something around here that's failed. And because the parts that are connected together could be all over the place, you kind of need a schematic now. And that's when I found this Schematic X site. Then it was a matter of searching for my MS-7798 board. You usually get 2 files, sometimes they're zipped together, but this one's in 2 separate files. These are out of order, so you've got to do some searching around. This is our MS-7798 schematic PDF, and here is the MS-7798 interactive breadboard file. Then just download them and unzip them. This is the PDF schematic. All the parts are connected with net lists, so it's a bit hard to find stuff on here. But when you open the breadboard file, you get this interactive breadboard view. Now to get this thing to work, you need to download the breadboard viewer. Now this is our capacitor we had the double short with. If we hover over one side, this is a ground. That side's always going to buzz, because it's a straight short to ground. But if we go to the other side, it says 3VA. If we click on that, everything connected to that now lights up. So you have to go to each one of these parts and see if there's double shorts on it. Well, I checked all of these, and it was only this one and this one that was double shorted. So I removed them, but it still had shorts on the pads. You can turn them 90 degrees and leave one end attached to the board so you don't lose them. That's when I saw this component had blown up, so I removed it. But when I checked the pads, they were still shorted. This is pin 3VA and shouldn't beep, and this is ground and it should beep. Now I'm clutching at straws, so I see this part over here and I remove it, but it's still double shorted. So even with all these parts removed, it was still shorted, and that's when I saw this AV40 pin. And now I'm thinking this chipset's blown and shorted internally, and there's no way I can fix this thing, so this board's pretty much dead. That's my sad story, $60 down the drain.